Hi, and welcome to Something for the Weekend, brought to you as always by Together 2012. We're a community interest company led by disabled artists based in the main London 2012 Paralympic host borough of Newham. I'm Ju Gosling, also known as Ju 90. I'm artistic director of Together 2012, and with me, where she's been
For a while.
for a while, we've lost count of the days. Since March 2020 is our chair, the artist Julie Newman. We're going to come back to my Canning Town studio in a little while, but first to the other end of our long virtual wheeled sofa to the West Midlands, where we're going to have some introductions from our co-hosts, some audio description, and they're also going to tell us what they're dressed up to go out to stay in to do this week.
Well, hello, I'm Tracy Surgeoner and I'm in our studio in Sutton Coldfield. Behind me, I've got our red velvet curtains, looking like we're in a theatre, which is very nice. Today, I have got my long blonde hair plaited into two little plaits, one either side of my head. I've got pale skin, blue eyes, and today I'm wearing a thick Aran jumper and a really chunky, thick brown scarf with some white and yellow daisies on it, accompanied by my homemade salt dough bracelet that I've made a couple of weeks ago, which I'm quite pleased with, which is green, blue, yellow, and red. And I'm dressed up to stay in to go to Scotland, hence my warm jumper. And I'll tell you more about that in my recommendations for the weekend.
That's very, very intriguing. So, yes, recommendations for things to do online for free in the week ahead are coming up in the second half of the show. So, to our other co host in the West Midlands.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Robin Surgeoner. I'm business director at Together 2012 and, of course, co-host of Together TV. What do I look like today? Well, I said if you're a regular visitor, you know I've been telling you I was about to retire my glasses. I have. And I am now wearing glasses that I'm not even sure what colour they are because every time I take them off, I can't see. So it kind of makes it a bit difficult. So I'm just going with they are dark framed and dark armed glasses in front of my blue eyes and slightly below my very white hair today. I am wearing a long sleeved, a real shirt, a proper button up shirt with a collar, in a kind of mid blue. And I'm wearing a blue tie, which has got the original 1988 Paralympic Games logo on it. I'm going to lean forward.
I think we're going to need a bit of audio description.
So the description is I've always described them as kind of 5 little tadpoles, or you could think of them as 5 little waves, and they are in purple, black, red, yellow, and green. So there's one slight difference there between the Olympic ring colours, and for legal reasons I won't say exactly why. But I am dressed up to stay in to go to the Paralympic closing ceremony, where I will wearing my very own Paralympic tie, as to represent athletes of games gone past.
That sounds fascinating. So I'm going to take the opportunity to put you on the spot and say, okay, we've got the Paralympic, without giving too much away, the Paralympic symbols now on my T-shirt, which you've got sort of the red, the blue, and the green. And they're still a little bit tadpole-like, but perhaps they look more like sunbeams, perhaps coming round in a circle. I have no idea what they mean. Does anybody else?
I think they're meant to be about movement and change. I think it's about movement and change. The whole progression of the Paralympic movement. From my recollection of it, they're like, they're movement rather than a static symbol.
Yeah, that makes sense. In the past, anyway, I don't know about the future, but in the past, when we put on live events, We had some wonderful, huge Paralympic agitos made from very, very shiny, sparkly fabric and stuffed with those irritating little polystyrene beads. And they were made by the Day Opportunities Women's Group for the 2012 Newham Carnival. We may be passing those on to the London Metropolitan Archives, but they've been very special to us. But every time we struggle to hang them in a tent and somebody says to me, "What do they mean?" And I have to go, "I'm not quite sure. I'm going to have to ask a Paralympian." But anyway, coming back to East London for some more introductions and audio description, I am wearing, and indeed so is Julie, a dark blue with a white stripe on the brim baseball cap saying Great Britain, and dark blue t-shirt with the white Paralympic logo, Tokyo 2020 Paralympics Games, it says on the front. And then are they called agitos underneath?
I'm going to defer to your previous answer. I don't know what that word means.
I can't remember what they're called. So we're all going to have to slap ourselves on the wrist and do a little bit of research. But in the meantime, I also have a self-styled Hennard Corona crop hidden, fortunately, under the baseball cap. I saw something yesterday and it said, "Oh, baseball caps have really taken off this year." And I thought, yes, because everybody, as with myself, said a year of homemade haircuts in front of a camera is enough. And from now on, we're all going to wear hats, mostly baseball caps. So they've become a sort of huge fashion item. So I have my fashionable baseball cap over my Hennard cropped hair. I've got black plastic glasses, green eyes, pale olive skin, and silver coloured jewellery. Oh, and my watch has got a rainbow strap. Julie, what do you look like?
I look like a twin of you, actually.
Kind of.
Except
non-identical.
That's it, except for the fact that I am wearing dark rimmed glasses. I also have lockdown hair straggling out from underneath my baseball cap. It is
actually, I think yours and Tracy's lockdown hair looks very nice, each to their own, and not everybody wants to take the clippers to themselves. Can't think why.
This is true.
Mind you, the fact that I can't see properly and can't hold the clippers properly has probably got something to do with the fact that Julie's got long hair.
Yes, I won't let her anywhere near me. So there we go.
You should see her dog.
My dear little dog is a bit patchy at the moment. We're changing her name from Precious to Patch in honour of Ju's hair cutting abilities.
Well, it's not just hair cutting abilities; it's what you're prepared to kind of put yourself through to cut the hair. But anyway, moving swiftly on, but not very far, because I know we're going to come back to the week ahead in the second half of the show. But can you just tell me, Robin, when the Paralympic closing ceremony is, because none of us want to miss it?
It is on Sunday and it begins at 11 a.m. on Channel 4 and is again hosted by Tanny Gray and Ade Adepitan.
Brilliant. Two of our certainly our most well-known Paralympians from the past. I thought the opening ceremony was the best I'd ever seen, and it's so interesting that people go, "Oh, it's not what they wanted to have with thousands of non-disabled people jumping around." I'm not sure they would have had that kind of ceremony anyway, but it just had so many disabled performers. It was so thoughtful, it was moving, it had lots of variety. It was really quite beautiful. And it just really made me kind of angry all over again about the fact that less than 3% of the performers at London 2012 Paralympic ceremonies was disabled. And, you know, that they had people on bicycles and roller skates, and you think, why not wheelchairs? It is the Paralympics. So I'm really looking forward to that ceremony. It will be available on the Paralympic YouTube site. If you can't make it, you're at church or something. But I really do recommend anybody interested in the arts or inclusion just to see how they do it, because yeah, the opening ceremony I thought was really quite special. But now we will move on and have some news from the Together Clubs programme. The Clubs programme is what we think of as our year-round outreach programme. It's free, it's open to all disabled people and whoever you want to bring with you for support, which these days on Zoom or on phone may be about the person in the house with you, just giving you a hand if you need it. We also recommend that you bring your own hot drinks and biscuits because that was always a big part of our clubs, you know, partly sociable, but also it's about relaxing, isn't it? Having a cup of tea, having a biscuit, taking your time. So the first thing that I'm going to look at is our Friday morning art club. And the Friday morning art club is a drawing and painting session from home. So we have a still life image each week. Alison Marchant, who first joined us as a volunteer and has lived in Newham for longer than I should really say, but Alison is a long-time resident, a very well-known international artist, and part-time she leads our clubs programme. And she creates an image each week for people to be able to draw or paint at home using whatever they have available. She audio describes the image at the start, and she can also share that image via email, WhatsApp, or text, as well as on the shared Zoom. Now, we always challenge Robin to audio describe the image. So I'm going to start by popping that up and getting him to have a go.
Oh, this is like my Jeopardy. Now, so this we have. So in the background is a pink kind of fluffy, puffy ball. It may be something else in itself, but actually, in terms of visually, it is a lovely, fluffy pink ball. It might be a hat, and then in front of that is a a sort of silvery and pinky, platinumy, silvery collection of feathers and a little bit of lacy backing, some leaves, and a piece of netting. I imagine it is probably a headpiece or you know, something you pin to yourself. But it's very interesting, and it looks like a bird. It very much looks like a bird.
It does, doesn't it? Which is interesting in itself. Thank you for that, Robin. So I've just got a few from this morning's club. So this is Crystal Peasy, and what Crystal's done is she's taken the shapes and she's taken pink paint and she's really kind of focused on the different shapes and the energy between the shapes and the relationship between the shapes, which is terrific. So this is Dwayne Bryan. Dwayne has done a beautiful job actually, and I think he's used some charcoal, some paint. He's got all sorts of different shapes in it. That is a really, really lovely picture, Dwayne. And then this is Lee Brooker, and Lee's done a very accurate representation, in fact, but he's taken the leaf and almost made it real and made it bigger, which is lovely, and that's in coloured pencil. So this is Margaret Spence, and Margaret's been using some felt tips and some wash. And again, it's a very, very accurate representation. Margaret's focused on the centre of the headpiece and created everything else in sort of very accurately, but it really draws attention to the centre where she's used lots of different colours. And then this is Sophia. Sophia's used felt tips. She's got blacks, purples, pinks, and again, another very, very accurate effort. I think the fact that we audio describe the image at the beginning, and obviously Alison has the advantage of having set the image up. So the audio description is a little bit more accurate and detailed, but I think it's really helpful. It's a very mindful session as well, and I think really focusing on the image at the beginning helps with the mindfulness as well as with the image. But that's lovely, Sophia. And finally, we're just going to say goodbye to that image again, and then I shall take it off. but we have a highlights and links page on our website, www.together2012.org.uk. You can find that in the pull-down menu under Together 2012 TV, or you can click straight through from the main page where we broadcast from. And you can get a copy of this photo, join in from home. If you'd like to send us a copy, we would love to see it. So next, we're going to go back in time to Tuesday when the Art Club runs a Make and Natter session. We welcome all disabled people wherever you live. You're very welcome to join in. You don't have to make a commitment to come every week. We know that just doesn't suit lots of people for all sorts of different reasons. So we have people who are pretty regular and people who are occasional visitors, and everybody is equally welcome. So I'm going to start off, this will be familiar to many people. It's Duncan Bridgestock, who's been making a wonderful series over the last few months of collages from recycled card. And I'm going to get Robin to audio describe this again.
Oh, right. So what we have is a very dark kind of charcoal black background, and then a series of rectangles arranged. I'm trying to think what it reminds me of. It's sort of very French, very yeah, a very kind of French cartoony style, and with some circles also cut out to create what look like windows through the image.
Yeah, I think that's a really accurate description. And we're going to be seeing a lot more of Duncan's collages in our Disability History Month Festival, which is coming up this November, December. So this is Sophia, and Sophia has taken a recycled can, covered it with, well, then she's drawn up flowers on paper in felt tips, and then she's covered the can with that picture to make a pencil tin, which I think is a great idea. Thank you for that tip, Sophia. And then finally, for now, this is Ellen Goody. And what Ellen's been doing has been doing a series of different collages. But with this one, she's looking at kitchen implements and she's making shapes with them. She's covered the same shape in all sorts of different colours, almost like a rainbow going in different directions, but in shades of green and brown. I know that's a strange description, so I apologise for that, but it's as close as I can get. All of those pictures will be on the highlights and links page by 6 o'clock on Friday, so do check it out for yourself. And now we'll go back in time. Well, we'll sort of jump around in time, but next we go to our pop-up poetry club. Our pop-up poetry club, unlike the other clubs, takes place on Zoom or on telephone on a Wednesday morning from 10:30 to 12. Do you want to just tell us a bit about it, Julie?
Anyone who wants to join, let's our program leader, Alison Marchant, know. And then she sets it up so that she phones you, and the phone calls are all completely free. And it's like a conference call, an old-fashioned conference call. So everybody joins in for 10:30. Then we have a half hour where we share poems, either that we've written or that we found, usually related to the topic, but not always. And then we all end the call and come back at about 11:20, where we all regroup, and then we have a chance to read our poems on the topic that Alison's chosen for that week.
And what was this week's topic?
Roses.
Roses.
I immediately thought of the chocolates, I must confess. So I managed to exert a little willpower and not go into wonderful prose about the different colours and tastes. But it's amazing. Everybody came up with something. And it was so diverse and really, really interesting. It captivated us all. Duncan spoke the lyrics to The Rose of Picardy, and it was terribly moving. It was really, really impressive. There was a lot of contributions. I think we all saw roses from different perspectives. So I suppose that's usual, isn't it? I mean, that's what happens in poetry. You have a whole group of people seeing something from a different perspective. It's like the old-fashioned elephant. describe an elephant, and if you can only feel it, then you describe the bit that you feel.
I think we're slightly wandering off subject here, so I'm going to move swiftly on and say, do you want to read us a poem, Julie?
Yes, I will. Just to say quickly before I forget, next week's theme is butterflies. Sorry?
Could you just move your microphone down a little bit, because it's all
right.
We're getting a little.
Is that better?
I think that is. Thank you.
Cool. I shall read my poem now. Well, not mine. This is Alison Marchant's. And Alison's written one called The Rose Bush. The rose bush leaves unfold in the sun. The dewdrop left sweetness. The light wind touched the leaves. Sorry, let me start again. Alison, forgive me. The rose bush leaves unfold in the sun. The dewdrop left sweetness. The light wind touched the leaves. A tiny bud appeared, and then another. Bright promises of radiant flowers, which caught the freshness of the evening showers. The petals unfolded into pink and fragrant beauty. A lone bee gathers nectar, and in a series of dance movements communicates to the hive and return to the comfort of the pink canopy to turn nectar into honey.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you, Alison. What have we got next from the West Midlands?
We have disappearing poems. So if you could carry on and I will retrieve them.
In that case, I'm delighted to read this one from Crystal Peasy called Roses. Roses are red. Roses are beautiful. Roses are bright. Roses are colourful. Roses are my favourite flower. Roses come in summer. Roses are pretty. Roses can be big and small. Roses can be healthy. Roses can be pink. Roses can be white. Roses can be blue. Roses can be orange. Roses can be found in the supermarket. Roses can be found in parks. Roses can be found in gardens. Roses can be found on balconies. And I thought that was particularly apt because Crystal lives in a flat, and that's absolutely right. You don't have to have a garden to be able to enjoy roses. Have you found your poems again, Robin?
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read one by Dawn Barber, Beautiful Rose. Don't let the I'll start again. Don't let the rose die yet, because you'll have to say goodbye. Try and keep it as long as you can, and stroke it with your hand. Feel the softness flow over you. Put it on your windowsill, and let the sun shine on it. As the leaves begin to fall, tell it you're the best of them all. And now you are dying. Your smell will go on and on to a place here and beyond.
That's beautiful, Dawn. Thank you so much. And I love the kind of stroking the petal, and it really made me think about how velvety rose petals can feel. Robin, do you have one for us?
I do. And I was just saying, it made me remember being a child and putting all the rose petals off, but to make my mum perfume. I'm sure we all did that. You'd crush them up in a jar. One of those memories that stays with you. So, sorry, this is Roses by Dwayne Bryan. Roses spring from the ground and don't make a sound. You haven't got time to watch them grow, but you hope they flourish through the wind, rain and snow. They could be pink. They could be red. They could be a romantic gesture for your bed. What are roses? What can they mean? Could they be a meaning of love? Could they hold a special place in somebody's heart? Could they be in a significant place in your heart? One day, I saw a woman with many roses. I'm not sure she was selling them or giving them away, but to have them in your possession makes a wonderful day.
That was lovely. I think some of the poems this week have really been amongst some of the best we've had. Julie, would you like to read us your own?
Yes, I basically took the folk song Barbara Allen and retold it. This folk song is actually something like 600 years old. Can you believe it?
Anyway. I can, but I've never heard of it, which makes it even more surprising.
Okie doke. So I followed the same meter, I think, more or less. But it is in my words. They sang the song in days of yore, a tale of true love dying. On a lonely bed he laid his head and laid back, gently sighing. Sweet William called for his lady dear. He sent her a heartfelt message. Please come and wipe my dying brow and ease me on my passage. Hard-hearted Barbara said, Alack a day, no comfort can I bring you. My heart is hardened against your love, even on your deathbed cruel. So William turned his face to the wall and slowly slipped away. Barbara Allen sat at home in grief until his funeral day. The bell rang out and touched her heart. She called her father to her side. Dig me a grave both narrow and long, she cried, and then she died. In the churchyard they laid her down. Her grave was next to William. From his there sprang a red, red rose. From hers a briar joined them. They grew and grew so very tall. The rose along the briar. The rose along the briar. A lover's knot was formed as they climbed, with roses red like fire.
Thank you, Julie. So all of the poems will be up later on the highlights and links page. Like I say, follow the link from the Together 2012 TV page or pull down menu. And I'm going to get Julie to give us a Wikipedia link through to the original folk song as well. We've just got time for a couple more. Tracy.
Okay, I've got one by Taylor Henzil. I remember roses. I remember when I was a child at my grandmother's house, playing in the garden. 1/4 of the garden was out of bounds, taken up by rose bushes, big red petals, bright like rubies, dotted around and dotted amongst a tangled nest of thorns. Loose balls, basketballs, tennis balls, and frisbees were chewed up and swallowed by the roses. I used to try and crawl under the thorns to get them back, but it wasn't worth the scratches.
Thank you, Taylor. And it's like Julie was saying, poems are all so different, and those memories that people share, and you're allowed other people to come and share in with them, are just wonderful. So finally, for now, this is Ellen Goody, and it's called Lots of Colours. Red roses, like my favourite drink, red wine. Red roses grow in the garden with other flowers, white and red and orange. Lots of colours growing. Open up and spread the word of love. So I thought that was a very nice one to finish on. Thank you, Ellen, for that. And now we will move on to an activity specifically designed to join in with from home with Tracy. So I'm just going to put the first of your pictures up, Tracy, and ask you to start telling us about them.
Right. Well, this week I decided that I was going to have a go at making an underwater scene. So basically, I collected just some things I'd got in the house. I've got an egg box. I've got some pages from a magazine. I've got some plastic that the magazine arrived in. And here I am actually trying to make a jellyfish. Yeah, it did come out okay. So to make the jellyfish, basically what I did is I scrunched the paper and put my finger through the middle to make a ball at the top, and then just secured it with an elastic band so that I could create the tentacles that fall down from the jellyfish. This is the collection of things that I put together. I cut out lots of different shapes. I was lucky enough to find an already drawn dolphin in my magazine, so that was quite handy. But I just picked colours that I like, things that I thought you would see under the sea. Cut them out randomly, and then thought, right, I'll start layering this box up, see what I can create. So here we go. I mean, there's no right or wrong way with this. I tried to, obviously I covered the back of the box with different pictures. At the back there was supposed to have a couple of I can't remember the words for lots of fish. lots of little fish all swimming together. And then just place my things around. So I've got some coral, I've got some fish, I've got a bit of a cave going on there. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's my picture from a different angle, showing you my tall coral that I cut out. A lot of the things I do, I tend to fray or bend so that it looks like it's creating a bit of movement. And then I think that is my completed box. Not quite, I can't see my jellyfish on that one, but I've got a crab, I've got a couple of little fish, I've got some coral, I've got some forgot what they're called.
I like the
Seashells.
way those black and white frames are coming down, Tracy. Did you
Yeah,
do something?
that was my attempt at framing my jellyfish. And again, I just found that was a frame inside the magazine that I was using, and I thought, oh, try and make that a bit, give it a bit of depth. So I've got like a 3D effect.
Yeah, and I think because it makes it look a bit different, it
Mhm.
kind of instantly says, I'm not trying to do something that's too naturalistic. So I think
Yeah.
I've just got one more picture. Just give me a moment.
And there you go. There is my dancing jellyfish. So yeah, you can see that I've tried to give it some sort of depth. I mean, it was fun. I enjoyed doing it. Luckily, I've got a yellow egg box. If it had been a plain egg box, then I probably would have painted it blue to start with. Yeah, I quite enjoyed just having a go, light-hearted fun when it was a bit cold outside. I'm not
Yeah,
the best artist, but yeah, I enjoyed doing that.
I don't think you've got to be a great artist to do this. I think it's a great family activity, but I actually think it's a really fun activity for anybody to do. And what I like about the shape of the egg box, although as somebody who's allergic to eggs, I would say there's other boxes you could use as well.
Yes.
If you don't have egg boxes in the house. It's just got all these different little bits and shapes and different compartments and different things to do. And it is a absolutely complete little model. Julie, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think it's lovely, Tracy. It's created a diorama. And in fact, the egg box could be a base for all sorts of different dioramas. It's
Yes,
beautiful.
yeah, absolutely.
Yes, thank you, Julie. That's the word I was looking for. So you're absolutely right. But now it is time to move on. So let me just take that picture off. Most weeks we also have a join in from home activity with Sterre, where we look at what Sterre has been doing this week, which is always an inclusive, accessible arts activity. And then if you want to follow her lead and join in from home, that video will be up on the highlights and links page. So this is Sterre Ploeger.
Oh, hi, I'm Sterre, and this is Merlo, the dog, and I made a picture of myself, a picture of Sterre out of fruit.
So, just to give a bit of audio description for anybody who couldn't see that, Sterre was looking for reference on the internet at some very elaborate portraits composed of different fruit and flowers, and then picking fruit and vegetables and making a picture of herself. It makes a terrific photograph at the end for anybody's Instagram or other social media streams as well. So, as always, Sterre, facilitated by Hannah Facey, finds yet another kind of amazing thing to do that's so simple, but has actually got a real fine art element to it. The next item has not got a fine art element to it. It's our regular Clockwork Paralympics. No show would indeed be complete without the Clockwork Paralympics, and particularly during Tokyo. So this is the last of the sessions that we've filmed with some of our earliest and kind of best known Clockwork Paralympians, the Clockwork Caterpillars. So the other thing we do with the Clockwork Paralympics is the Paralympians aren't very good at wearing medals, but our teddy bears are. And we like to have a teddy bear in our live stream to support the International Virtual Bear Hunt for Children, of which more another week, I think. Suffice it to say, this week we are being represented, as usual, since I was given her as a birthday present in May, by Tanny, our sporty teddy bear, who's honey-coloured and wearing a red headband, white and red trainers, a little blue sports top, and fortunately a medal of her own. And Tanny is holding So Mighty, which is the Paralympic mascot for Tokyo 2020. Who's competing for you, Robin?
So we have Constantine, the Turkish Paralympic bear. He is a small bear, maybe 15 centimeters tall, something like that. In a kind of really luxurious chocolate brown, and incredibly soft. It's actually a beanie bear, a collectible, so I won't squeeze him too hard.
No, there's an element, isn't there, Julie? If their teddy bears are better than ours, their medals are better than our single gold plastic one, but we don't mind. So do you want, and anybody who wants to join in from home, choose the competitor on the right or the left to support. What's your choice, Robin and Tracy?
Your turn to choose today.
We'll go for the caterpillar on the right.
Okie doke. So I'm going to pop it up and get Robin to audio describe.
So here we are back at our arena, the super slick running track. Let's hope it stays as dry and doesn't turn into a very wet racetrack like we had at the weekend for Formula One. Let's get ready to go. And it's a great start there. They are absolutely moving as slowly as caterpillars might possibly do. The orange one again seems to have taken the London competitor as absolutely thrashing the Birmingham competitor, who yet again seems to have lost their way, and is currently running into the side of the bath. Although no, it's coming along now though. I mean, who knows? Who knows? It might catch up and overtake, or it might run out of zing before it gets there. Oh, yeah. I do believe that London, for the second consecutive week, have absolutely stormed the race. You're muted again, Julie. Sorry. Ju.
Julie, would you like to put a medal on Tanny? And So Mighty's just jumping up and down as she's...
Yay, well done, Tanny.
Well done, So Mighty. And so, without further ado, we will move on and have a look at our recommendations for the week ahead. Robin, would you like to start?
I would. So my first recommendation actually is a TV show called Lupin, and it's a apparently I don't know if it's a real book, but the TV program is based around a character in a book called The Adventures of Arsène Lupin, and he's like a gentleman thief, burglar, crime trickster. I don't know if you saw the show. It's the main character is called Arsène Diop, and he is a black man, and his father. I mean, without giving too much away, his father was sent to prison, and the show really is about the son finding a way of clearing his father's name. But it's really, really intriguing. It's very, very cleverly done. and it's filmed in French, but has English. It's overdubbed in English, so you don't have to read. You know, it's great. But it's just it was fun, wasn't it? You know, and it's there's the odd gun and a bit of a door kicking every now and again, but it's not really the point of it. So it's not into, you know, it's a little bit adult in points, but it's just kind of really nice bit of escapism, but without having to have like, you know, million car crashes and, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, whenever you or Tracy recommend a TV show, I've always enjoyed it. I'm going to hop in and recommend Bodies by Raminder Kaur. Sorry, my autocorrect recorrected this to remind us so many times. It feels like it's got into my head. Raminder Kaur has written and produced an experimental multimedia psychodrama that combines tragedy with comedy, weaving ancient and contemporary stories about dilemmas of the body, mind, and people's experiences with cancer. And you can see it for free every night for the next couple of weeks from 7 to 8:30. The launch event, they did have a webinar with a Q&A. I'm not sure whether that's available online or not. It has an awful lot of very, very positive recommendations from organisations, you know, of and for people with cancer survivors, and also very, very highly recommended from an artistic point of view. So the link there will be up on the highlights and links page, and that's booked through Eventbrite. You can't, I think, just go online and find it. You do have to kind of fill in the booking link. Julie, what would you like to recommend?
Well, the Natural History Museum is launching the this year's Wildlife Photographer of the Year exhibition. But online, on the web, it's possible to see the highly commended ones that didn't quite make the end cut. But also, they've got the archive of previous Wildlife Photography of the Year from previous years, obviously. But it's beautiful, and it's well worth checking out.
And something that always strikes me with those things is it's not always professional photographers with professional cameras or top of the range phones. In our previous show, Together Unlocked, we looked quite a lot about nature and nature photography from home. And it really is amazing what you can find even just outside on the windowsill. Tracy, what would you like to recommend?
I'd like to recommend, excuse me, a show that's on Netflix at the moment called The Chair. Sorry. Which is just it's a comedy, and it's a very good comedy. I don't know if anyone has watched Killing Eve. It's the same. The detective from Killing Eve is now the chair of a big university, and one of her first jobs is to sort of scale down the staff, which is, you know, usual. But she's just absolutely hilarious from the minute she comes, you know, into view all the way along. I just found it quite very entertaining.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of things in there about women's rights and, you know, the old boys network and things, but it's done in such a way that it's hilarious. So I really recommend you watch that.
Yes, that's 2 for the weekend then, Julie, which is great. Well, I'm going to recommend something a bit more serious now, which is a free online webinar for musicians and music professionals interested in applying for Arts Council funding. And it's particularly aimed at people who've applied before and been unsuccessful, or people who haven't applied but really want to. So it's on next Thursday, the 9th of September from 10:30 to 12. It's run by the Arts Council, and they're going to tell you about the different funding programmes available, any differences that now exist as a result of the pandemic. So if you've had funding before, but you want to know how things have changed, that's also very useful. And tips and tools to help you complete the application form, which, as everybody who's ever applied for a grant from the Arts Council will know, is not the easiest process. So I think that's a very, very, very welcome, you know, event. And they're also very keen, you know, if you practice a form of music that hasn't had funding in the past, maybe it's seen as too commercial, too urban, they're very, very keen that you should go along. Robin, do you have something else for us?
I do, and interestingly enough, having heard you say the word welcome, I'm not sure what we've recommended before from the Welcome collection, but fundamentally the Welcome collection is a huge resource, an online resource of kind of art stuff and images around research, exploring health and the human condition. It is at essence still a gallery in many ways, but there's a vast amount of its material, both historic and current, online, including there's about 10 shots, kind of very historic shots of the like Sir Ludwig Goodman and the early days of the Paralympics, right through to its most current season, which is called On Happiness, which I think is a kind of a really on point kind of place to be thinking about as we come out or don't come out, but are hoping, as we progress through the current state of affairs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all the recommendations we've got time for this week, but we're going to stick a couple of extra ones that we haven't had time for up on the website, along, like I say, with all of the booking links. So before we get to our and finally item, which Robin will introduce in a minute, I'd just like to flag up a couple of things for next week. We're coming to the end of our Summer Together programme, but we have one final wonderful workshop on offer on Monday morning with electric cellist Joanne Cox. It's called Define Your Own Journey. It's looking at the way that she's extended the work she's been doing with sound and storytelling and light into an online project you can actively engage with yourself. So if you'd like to join in, drop us an email to info@together2012.org.uk and we will send you the Zoom link. That's 11 to 12 on Monday, the 6th of September. Coming up in next week's show, next Friday, I'd also like to flag up that we're going to have the filmed performance of our trainee Eve Smith's play Cuppa. So we're really looking forward to that. If you're not able to see it on the day, then again, that will be linked on our YouTube channel and linked through from our highlights and links page. And we're delighted to say that Eve has now got a place at Kingston University to study acting. So we'll be saying goodbye to her as a trainee next Friday as well. So that's all from East London. So I'm going to ask Robin and Tracy to say goodbye and get Robin just to introduce the final item.
Goodbye. See you next week.
And the final item, I won't say very much other than this is an interview with Jarrod Clyne, who is the human rights advisor to the Commission, the Commission of Rights for Disabled People. So today I am talking with Jarrod Clyne, who is the Human Rights Advisor to the International Disability Alliance. Hi, Jarrod.
Hi there, Robin. Thank you for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure. I'm going to get straight down to the questions. The launch of the We the 15 using the Paralympics as a platform should deliver a great start to the campaign. How do you think the launch has gone so far?
Our impression is that it's been extremely successful. We've looked at various metrics in terms of the media and on Twitter. Of course, as always, it's really what lasts that counts, but we're very pleased with the reception. And I think the messaging is quite positive and really trying to use the Paralympics to focus on the rights of all persons with disabilities.
And just for anyone who's not exactly sure, how would you describe what We the 15 is?
So essentially, it's an advocacy and awareness raising campaign. It tries to merge the worlds of human rights advocacy and sport and bring along a wide range of stakeholders, businesses, international organizations, and civil society to really push further for change in the rights and lives of persons with disabilities. Obviously, the legal framework is already there, but what we notice is that political will sometimes is high and other times flags, and crucially, the attitudes and approach of each individual around the world is something that needs continuous effort and focus. So we really hope that that we can make a difference at the individual and institutional level through the We the 15 campaign.
Okay. I mean, I think you've got a big job. So could you tell us a little bit about your role at the International Disability Alliance, and in fact what IDA's involvement is with the We the 15 campaign?
Yeah, so so my job is a human rights advisor for the International Disability Alliance, which is really focusing here in Geneva on the Human Rights Council and also the World Health Organization and World Health Assembly. I mean, essentially, I just main advocacy activities at the international stages at the United Nations, and there's a huge amount of work done on persons with disabilities, and we're trying to make sure that it's inclusive of persons with disabilities in the process as well. And in terms of We the 15 campaign, it was a product of a memorandum of understanding between the International Disability Alliance, the International Paralympic Committee, and other organizations, including the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights, UNESCO, the Valuable 500 Consortium, and a few others. But the idea came out of a recommendation in part from the Human Rights Council that the so-called worlds of sport and worlds of human rights should somehow work more together to try and make the most of the potential of both of those worlds.
From my own experiences, you know, I competed in Paralympics. I mean, and for me, the games in Seoul were kind of watershed in many ways, not just because it was the first one to have proper audiences, but because of the impact it had on the people of Seoul. And I think that, you know, that's one of the long-lasting legacies, is that impact at the individual level for people who interact with disabled people as well as the disabled people in those communities. So thinking about that, with human rights and specifically disability rights being so differently interpreted across the globe, and sadly, absent in kind of many places, what's the campaign going to target first, and how do you believe it can be effective in a global way?
It's a good question. I think, as you say, it's each time the Paralympics is held, there's often a tangible and hopefully long-lasting difference in those countries, and this is really trying to make that change happen around the world. We've seen over the past 2 years persons with disabilities disproportionately affected during the COVID-19 pandemic and response. Despite all the fine words on paper, despite the CRPD, the views of the committee's recommendations, guidelines, frankly, sadly, sometimes this just isn't implemented, it's not followed. So in the first instance, the campaign is focusing on COVID-19 vaccination prioritization for persons with disabilities around the world on an equitable basis. And of course, this means for certain individuals, proper prioritization, not leaving persons with disabilities behind. And so the idea is to write to governments around the world under the We the 15 banner and urge them to do so. I mean, I should say, though, some countries absolutely are doing that. It's not that the picture for persons with disabilities in terms of COVID-19 vaccination and indeed on other issues is completely even throughout the world. There are different challenges in different countries, but nonetheless, we do feel that that is the most important issue at this particular juncture, because it really is a matter of life and death. And tragically, you know, the past 18 months, 2 years have shown how structural inequalities and poor policies for persons with disabilities do remain in so many countries. So that's, yeah, that'll be the first port of call, first priority.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the most sensible one. I mean, and you know, even here in the UK, you know, rights activists have been up in arms about the lack of equity in treatment for disabled people, and particularly for adults who haven't been in a position to advocate for themselves. Does the campaign, or the links that the campaign of We the 15 has into organisations like yours have the framework to actually raise legal challenges?
I mean, certainly some organisations that are part of the We 15 campaign do some legal work, but I would say it's not necessarily the focus. It's more political than legal. I guess strategic litigation is not something that that been so strong on. I mean, I would say that it is extremely important work, and organisations of persons with disabilities around the world do that sometimes, but it's less of the focus. But it's definitely something that could consider. I guess it really goes to the point of what does bring about lasting change, and what is the most efficient and effective and kind of efficacious means of generating that change. And this will differ depending on the country, I suppose. In the US, litigation is the main, or one of the main tools of advocacy in a way that it perhaps isn't in some other countries, perhaps like your own. I'm not sure if you have any reflections from England on this, but I mean, what we have noticed is that in the UK, for example, just to use your national context as an example, the CRPD committee has looked very seriously at some of the policies of the government in the past. For example, the austerity measures imposed some years ago, and that was the subject of the first investigation by the CRPD committee, and they came up with some very firm conclusions on that, and appropriately so. I guess that's not litigation per se; it's quasi-judicial at best, but it is using the UN to advocate for the rights of persons with disabilities. And in my observation, I think that has had a positive difference in the local contexts. And I should say also that the FCDO are quite an ally internationally in the rights of persons with disabilities. So there is an element of political will generation through CRPD reviews as well.
That's great. So to close, the Paralympics are, we're in the last few days. The flag and the flame will move around the world as the years go on. What is the next stage, or how do you envisage that the campaign is going to be kept going and kept at the forefront of individuals through to governments' minds?
There is a framework for next steps. The campaign aims to be quite ambitious in terms of its duration. It's supposed to run for 10 years. Yeah, there are a list of priority themes to focus on. I've mentioned COVID-19 vaccination, also assistive technology. We've also got prioritization of participation and consultation with organizations of persons with disabilities. And at the same time, there will be a continued strong focus on awareness raising, trying to change individuals' attitudes, because we've noticed that even though the CRPD was a paradigm shift, the idea of persons with disabilities as rights holders and disability being a social construct, not buying into the charitable or medicalized model, is extremely important. But we find that continued vigilance and constant effort is needed to remind people of this, because people's attitudes about disability and about persons with disabilities shape policy, and this is extremely important to focus on. So I think perhaps the value add for me of the campaign is the extent to which there's buy-in from corporations and a real wide range of stakeholders who are not traditionally as engaged in the rights of persons with disabilities, and also the messaging around ending stereotypes. I'm not sure if you saw the advertisement, but the idea of persons with disabilities are just like everyone else. They have ordinary lives. They're, I mean, you won 9 medals, so in a sense you're inspirational, but we want to also get away from sometimes, what would you call it, using persons with disabilities as an object of inspiration about how brave they are to overcome barriers. It's like, no, you must remove the barriers, you must end discrimination. Persons with disabilities must have substantive, inclusive equality with all, and we hope the campaign will help assist that.
Brilliant, and a great note to finish on. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me, Robin.
Bye-bye.